I'm Dors from the Talbot Greenya group.
It's Katrina Foard. How are you doing, Pam? I haven't seen you forever.
I am doing fabulous. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've been kind of out for the past couple weeks. I've been traveling and had a little procedure done, so I'm finally back.
Well, you came back at the perfect time. This weather is fantastic.
This is the reason people should live in Virginia. This type of weather is that cooling fall, and it's lovely, ready for some fire pit and some s'mores and some Halloween.
Yes. I'm in the process of building a fireplace right now outside, so I can't wait to get a fire going in it.
And I'm in the process of decorating for Halloween.
Yay! Gotta love fall.
So our house is a little extra for Halloween. So this year the theme is spiders. So we have over 55 large spiders, including one that's over 12 feet. So we get a little extra.
Wow. I think I'm going to stay far away from your house because I'm not fond of spiders at all. Fake, live, whatever.
That's a good thing to know.
Oh, no.
So in a past, actually, I shouldn't call it a past life, but one of the things I used to do is I worked at a place up here in Northern Virginia called Cox Farms, which is what we call agro entertainment, where they do some agricultural stuff as a farm, but for the most part, they've got slides and animals that you can look at but not touch. And they've got, I used to drive the tractor for the hayride. So we used to do the hayride, but my favorite thing was on weekends, I was a scarer. So it was like the best job ever because I used to go and just literally scare the pee out of people.
That's exciting, I think, but how awesome that you are part farm girl and part city girl. I mean, that's the perfect segue into today's conversation, I feel like.
Because you chose this, and I'm like, you can't have two people that are on opposite ends of the spectrum, because today we're talking about HOAs.
Right.
Which like 90% of Northern Virginia is like HOA territory. Like it's very difficult to find a house up here that's not in a homeowners association.
Right. And out here, it's the opposite. I think there are maybe 3 or 4 subdivisions, or maybe we just started our 5th in Clark County. So yeah, very much of our land is agricultural and farmland without HOAs. So, but having said that, I mean, I'm on a farm, right? And there's 4 other homeowners. And while it's not a homeowners association, we do have some rules and regs that we have to follow. So I think there's a misconception that just because you live on a tract of land that there isn't any rules. I know it's a little different from a homeowners association. And I was hoping you could explain that to folks, just because it's not labeled as such, that it can be restrictive.
And I think there's a lot of negativity around homeowners associations, HOAs, because what HOAs are designed to do is literally, it's a number of homes that put their money in a pot or a pool of money, and that money is supposed to go towards maintenance of common areas that is owned not by a private landowner, but it's owned by the association. So in order to have common areas, you have to have an association that owns it. So it's a varying degree of what HOAs control. And as we get into this, I do have to tell some really good HOA horror stories because they're really good.
Well, I feel like HOAs can certainly be just as much of a pro as a con, right? Because I would think that almost 100% of the time, a homeowners association is going to keep the home's values similar or on a more even playing field. Whereas if you live in an area where there aren't homeowners associations, you don't know what you could have next door. that could bring your property value down. But conversely, if you live in a homeowners association that's incredibly restrictive, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's it's sort of the devil's advocate part of all of this is I think that HOAs can really help in maintaining property values by declaring that their purpose is to make sure that everyone's homes are kept up to a specific standard, right? And that's, but a non-HOA community, you really have to become neighborly and be friends with your neighbors, and that leads to either letting go. If their fence is not fixed, just let it go. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. And I think what HOAs have done have taken away that neighborliness and have put a third party in the mix, and the third party becomes the bad guy, right? So let's say Karen is tired of your fence not having the right color stain. That's a thing. And you have drip marks on your deck from your stain because that's a thing. So they really, but 100% of an HOA is determined by the people who run it. So here's, you ready for my stories? Because in my life, let's see, my husband and I have been married for 27 years and lived in Virginia for 23 of those, and have lived in an HOA for all 23 years. Despite the fact that we've lived in probably 12 homes during that time. Right? Like that's just Northern Virginia is just HOA. So I will tell you a story first. Yay. So I was pregnant with my first child, and we lived on a golf course. And we lived on the 17th fairway. So the house backed up to this lovely green, right, where people tee off right to the left of us. And then you've got the green, the fairway. And then the hole was a little bit like 6 houses down from us was the hole. So I was home. I was 37 weeks pregnant. I was home, and all of a sudden, all these guys started walking by the house. We had probably 10 feet between us and the house next to us. And they started walking in between the houses, and then they started digging a giant hole in kind of what I would consider an easement between our property line and the golf course. And I'm just kind of looking out the window, watching this going on. So I'm not sure why these guys are just building this huge hole. So I called the association number, and they said to me, "Oh, we're putting up a 16-foot pole." So a 16-foot pole in cement in your backyard that is going to be a sample for a pole. We're going to run these along the entire fairway. There's going to be 12 of them, and there's going to be a green mesh fence that goes along there to catch all the golf balls. Because if you live on the fairway, your house gets hit a lot by golf balls. But you live on a fairway. Like, that's what happens. So I'm a little like on the phone going, wait, what? Okay, I never got told about this. They said, yes, we're going to send you a letter to let you know that everyone in the community can come and look at this pole in your backyard. Okay. Oh, great idea. Okay, so everyone's going to be walking through my property in order to get to your property in order to look at the 16-foot giant green pole. Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay. So what do I do? Well, if you want to fight this, you need to come to the HOA meeting on such a date. So I am in labor, literally. Contractions, 50 seconds. They are 3.5 minutes apart. And I would not go to the hospital until I finished my HOA letter.
Oh my.
And I'm in labor. I go to the next door neighbor and I said, I'm on my way to the hospital to give birth. I need you to go read this at the HOA meeting. Because at that point it was too late. I would have gone. I should have given birth at the HOA meeting. I think it would have made my point.
Well, they would have known that you were serious. There would have been no doubt that you were passionate about what you were saying.
So, I mean, in the end, they did take down the pole, and everyone recognized the idiocy of, look, if you live along a fairway, that's a risk you're going to take. That's like one of my HOAs. I just think it's funny because my husband laughs at me all the time. He's like, you're a little hardcore about HOAs. But that's
a good story, but it also, it brings about, the conversation that you live on a fairway or lived. And if you're going to buy a home there, you have to understand that is part of the beauty of it, the risk of it. I mean, it's another double-edged sword, right? You'll never have a building in your backyard. You'll have this beautifully maintained grass, but you'll have people walking by and random balls that may or may not be hitting your house. See, now for us, out here, because there's so much farmland, we have subdivisions that back up to active farmland. And there have been some complaints about farm animals on a farm where people build a subdivision, they back up to it, and they want the farms to not let their animals, my rooster was just standing here crowing a few minutes ago. I was hoping he would continue because that's one of the things that they complain about. Well, that rooster crows at 2:00 in the morning. It's a farm. It's a working farm. I'm sorry. Well, we don't like it. So that's a good segue now, I think, into, another one of your stories perhaps, but how people must remember that when they go into an area, there are things that are going to be inherent to that area, and your homeowners association may try to fix them, but sometimes, like you just said, the fix is not necessarily the best answer.
I think that part of what we do as agents is when we are looking for a property for you, we do disclose to you that the property is in an HOA property. A condo association is a totally different story. Condo associations typically are very large monthly rates, but those typically are going to include a master insurance policy. That does not mean you don't need homeowners insurance policy. It's separate. You still need that. And some other fees involved in there. So they typically have a higher monthly fee. But as agents, we need to go through that with you, living in an HOA means. When you go under contract in a property, when you're in escrow, you are required to be provided with a copy of the HOA documents. Please, please, please go. You typically have 3 days to read through those HOA documents. Please read them. Please understand them, because you might not think it's a big deal until you move in and you want to build a fence and you realize, oh my gosh, the HOA doesn't let me build a fence, right? So these are those are the big things. Can I have chickens? No. Can I have bees? No. Can I leave my dog outside on a chain? Now that's a county thing here, and the answer is no. You also cannot have cats that live outside in this county.
Really?
Yeah. So those are the things that an HOA document, you need to go over it when you go under contract with a house, because can you build a pool in the backyard? That's another major thing. Despite where the septic field is, right? An HOA is going to tell you whether you can build a pool or not, and sometimes the size of a pool. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that Pam and I will walk through with you when you purchase a property within an HOA.
Yep. And it's very important. I feel like the most important part is the rules and regs, the section that you're very explicit talking about, how high the fence can be, whether or not it could be chain link, or whether or not it has to be privacy, or whether or not you can have a motorcycle. I mean, I have read some HOA rules and regulations that are off the hook. You can't have a motorcycle, or you can, but it can only be so many decibels loud, or you can't have an RV in your driveway, or you can't have a vehicle parked that isn't driven 6 months out of the year, or some such thing. So Yes, that is the best advice ever, is that you need to read through what the restrictions are, because they don't just restrict you, but of course they're restricting your neighbor. So, can you live with it? And if you can, is it something that is great for you because you don't want anybody else to have to do that? Or is it something that you think is okay for you, but if the guy next door has it, maybe that's not going to be great because he may not maintain it like you do, or some such thing.
Exactly. And I think another important part of it is if you live in an HOA, particularly the ones in Northern Virginia, when you go to sell your property, I may have lost Pam for a second. So when you go and to sell a property that is within an HOA, I highly recommend, and I usually like to order my HOA docs prior to the sale of the property, because the HOA is going to come through and do a resale inspection. And I like to do those before we sell so that we know what we need to fix before the house even goes on the market. HOA resale is going to be very vital to get done before the house goes on the market, because and you learn this a lot, people being grandfathered in. And here's an example. My good friend had a house in a neighborhood that had an HOA. He's very smart, very bright gentleman. The HOA doc said you cannot have a fence taller than 6.5 feet. And he had a great backyard. So he built a fence on 2 sides of the house with 6 feet. And then the fence part of it, he put a fence that was 3 feet. Now, he followed the HOA regulations. They took him to court because they firmly believed that you could not have a fence higher than 6.5 feet. Well, they never said that it had to be at least 6 feet. So he had the 3.5-foot fence. Go to resale. He's now been grandfathered in because he did that before the rules changed. But since they took him to court, the rules changed. So when that comes up again in resale, we need to know those things. Whether the color of your front door is no longer an approved color, we need to know those things before you sell. So get those resale documents before we list so that we can get it done and have a smooth closing.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So anyway, like Pam and I come from totally opposite ends of the Virginia living spectrum.
Absolutely. But hey, like I said, there's 5 farms in my subdivision, as it were. And while we don't have community areas and we don't have a homeowners association, we still have language that talks about how we maintain the roads, who maintains the roads, what gets mowed, what doesn't, the mailboxes. So it's not really a homeowners association. Well, I mean, I guess it isn't at all, because the community area is not, it's the road. The road is our community area. And it is still somewhat restrictive, and it's important. I mean, it's just really important to have it. But yeah, homeowners associations, I would say, are mostly good, but depending on what it is you're willing to give up or to have is really whether or not it's good for you. So, absolutely.
And my solution is you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Everyone's gonna hate this. If you don't like the people who are on your board, vote someone else in or vote yourself in.
Run for board. Yes, I have been the secretary of my homeowners association, and I am the president of our whatever association we have here currently. And yeah, don't complain if you're not going to contribute. That's what I always say. You need to be involved. If you want something different, or you want something new, or you want to change, you be the change.
Here's my other tip. Facebook doesn't change minds. Just because you don't like someone's door color, Facebook ain't going to change that for you. So if you want to fix a problem, first of all, be neighborly. Right? If your neighbor hasn't mowed, come from a place of kindness. Do you need help? I've noticed you haven't mowed. Do you need help? First things first. If they shut the door on you, fine, walk away. Then neighborly ain't gonna work. But I mean, also just kind of let that go. But you never know if you can be of help to someone. Maybe their mower died. You never know. So
Amen.
come be a good neighbor. Get to know your neighbors. I love my neighbors. My garage door is open. They'll come close it for me. They'll text me, hey, your garage door was open. We closed it for you. Right? Like, be a good neighbor, and you won't have to worry about the big bad HOA coming in as much.
Kindness always prevails.
True.
Yeah. And on that note,
great. It's coming. The weekend's here.
Yes, and it's going to be a beauty. It's absolutely going to be a beauty. I know I'm going to spend as much time outside as possible. So I just want to sign off and say, Pam Dors, real estate agent with the Talbot Greenya Group. It's been really great speaking with you guys. Buy, sell, rent. We are available for all of it.
I can't wait to come out to Pam's fire pit in the country. You come up to my HOA-controlled fire pit.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody.